And we're back for another one. I'm Kataira Smith with Ridgefield School District. I've got Kevin here. If you've been watching, you've heard that restated over and over again as we go. So our next scenario here is pretty typical. I work with Connection Center mentors that we have at each site as well, and they see it. I have a teacher who wrote us a little information on it as well, but it's really that self-talk. Students coming with just negative self-talk about themselves, like they are quick forgetters, or I hate myself, or my name sucks, just negative talks about themselves. Yeah. So what would you do in those ones?
Well, the last one we talked about vulnerability and the experience of negative emotion. Mm-hmm. And I think what's happening, perhaps, for these young kids is they're experiencing negative emotion. And it's somehow, we know that there's a phenomena that adults do, but kids do certainly. Like if you don't get picked for the team, you say, well, I didn't want to play. Uh-huh. And I think that might be what's happening here, is that if I identify with this, it doesn't hurt as bad. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this gets attention. And so if this is met with, no, you're not, that's not true, mm-hmm. now I'm actually having an interaction that feels pretty rewarding and positive based on this. So I would probably start with just ignoring these statements altogether. Again, we talked in the last one about the way I interact with kids shapes the way that they're going to interact with themselves. Mm-hmm. I don't interact with you as though you're fragile, and I'm certainly not going to interact with you as though you're a poor learner because you're telling me that you are. But I'm not going to convince you that you're not. But then what I might do is I also might even have a small assignment for kids. When I hear you say something not very nice about yourself, you got to take a small little break and write down 5 nice things.
To fill it up. Replace that statement. That
will be kind of a pain. Like nobody wants to take a break. And so all of a sudden they learn not to make that statement out loud. Now the concern there is, have we helped them feel any better about themselves, or have we taught them just not to say it out loud?
Or do they now hate writing?
Right. And so these are just interventions that you roll out and you experiment with.
And play.
I would say that my assumption here is that they probably don't feel great emotions all the time, but they may not believe that about the act of saying this out loud probably gets them something.
Yeah.
So I would experiment with that, and then I would also include opportunities in the classroom where everybody has to say something nice about themselves.
And we do have, each site calls it different, but morning meetings, community circle, proactive circles where kids can come together, sit and have conversations. Yeah. So this could be a good opportunity for what you're about to say on their share out time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or allow students to say other nice things about other students, which can feel a little bit better. Yeah. And then outside of that, maybe, talking to the child separately, and again, in a very matter-of-fact way, just saying, I've noticed that you often say these things. How come? With great confusion.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't typical that people say these things about themselves, and it would be interesting to know what their explanation is.
Yeah.
Where have they heard that? Somewhere along the line, we say, I'm no good. And if nobody bats an eye, we kind of maybe don't say that anymore. But if somebody goes, no, you're amazing, you're great,
we don't
you're
say that
great.
about ourselves.
So it might be, the similar kids that are melting down because they're doing something wrong, they may later then be identifying as being a slow learner or not very smart or saying that they suck.
And we're starting to go into trauma awareness, building that up. I know for myself, when I was a kid, I had a lot of ACEs, and I didn't hear positive things. So I only heard stuff like, you suck.
Right.
Those were the terms used in my household.
Sure.
So that just kind of became my everyday of self-awareness to myself. Like, that's just what people think. That's the typical.
Yeah.
So I liked how you talked about how bringing it up, that's not typical, because kids don't always have that experience in all their settings of what is normal, how should I think about myself in a particular way, right?
Yeah, and I think of students or siblings as well. Are siblings saying these things, or are the adults in their lives talking about themselves in that way?
They can hear them.
Yeah. And, that has some currency socially when we say things. If we all know and follow someone on social media that posts things like this, and then we kind of just look at their comments because we know they're pulling for people to say, no, you don't, you're a great mom, no, you don't. And it's a little bit of
the social media
unsophisticated way of getting yourself to feel better about yourself. And so I would just inquire, why are they saying that? And you're right, your point's great that maybe it's also they're just hearing that. So
okay,
yeah, I think lastly I would just say I would I would provide some observations about what you think of this child. Like, I notice that you are really fun to be around. I notice that you're quite clever. I notice that you're, I wonder how you make sense of the way that you see yourself and the way that I see you. And really let them sit with that. Yeah. How do they make sense of that? Yeah.
Yeah, I like our middle intermediate connection centers. I think it's the middle school. Colette. Sorry to call you out, Colette. But she has a group going, and they have boxes of self-affirmative statements. Cool. Yeah. So they just every single time write about it and each other, and then they'll read it about themselves too on a daily. And I think it's powerful. That's one thing my sister got me on, was saying affirmative statements daily. Yeah. So every time before bed, we say that with our kiddos. So I'll say it to them, like, you are, and they'll repeat it. I say, you are awesome. I am awesome. You are special. I am special. And then they'll do it to me. Yes. And it's just the feeling of even just doing it as an adult, it just changes your perspective and it relieves weight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We all should say more positive things throughout our day.
We should. And we, the adults now that we, those of us that go around with these thoughts in our head about ourselves, this is where it started.
Yep.
And so despite years of therapy and personal growth and success and whatever it is, we hold these vulnerabilities in every interaction that we do. We're always we always feel like an imposter because we feel like the 5-year-old version of us that shouldn't have made it, even though objectively we know that
why
we have.
Me?
Yeah, and so when people say, you look great, or I'm so proud of you, we go, that can't be true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And why can't we just feel that it's true? One of these days, right? Okay, on to the next one.